First tournament he ever played in college, it was the final round, 3 or 4 holes to play, and I asked Lewis, how you doing? I know you're playing well, how do you stand to par? And he looks at me and he says, I don't know. He was just trying to make birdie on every single hole.
On every single hole.
And that's a great way to play golf.
Yo, 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 welcome to the Lewis Chitengwa Memorial Golf Tournament here in Charlottesville, Virginia. Now, you may not be familiar with the namesake, but you definitely should be. See, in the 90s and 2000s, he was one of the best amateurs in the world. And before his passing, many people thought he would go on to be one of the greatest players to play the game. Oh yeah, he also beat the GOAT, which is just a small part of his story. Welcome to Voices. I am Jacques Slade, and this is the Lewis Chitengwa story.
I first heard of him in 1992 when he won the Orange Bowl Junior. Tiger had won everything, and typically he was winning junior tournaments by huge margins. So for Lewis to come over and beat Tiger by 3 shots in a 72-hole tournament was significant. And that got him on everybody's radar who was a college coach in America. And I learned other information. He'd already won the Zimbabwe men's amateur. So I knew this guy's for real. I got to get hold of this guy. The Chitengwa family in 1992, 93 didn't have a phone in their home. And it was eventually a government official from the Zimbabwe government who was a family friend of the Chitengwas who called me and asked, I understand you're the coach from Virginia. You want to speak with Lewis Chitengwa. And I said, yeah, do you know him? And he says, he is sitting here in my office. It was a 1.5 year process before Lewis arrived at UVA in the fall of 1994. He had won the South African amateur in 1993 when South Africa was still an apartheid country. Millions of black folks still in those camps that they had relocated people to, and they had no civil rights, and apartheid had been shunned by the rest of the world and boycotted. When he arrived at the golf course in South Africa, he was told he couldn't come in the clubhouse. So for Lewis, as a kid to go in there, a black kid from Zimbabwe, and win the national championship, it was very much like Jackie Robinson integrating baseball. It was very much like Jesse Owens winning gold medals in front of Hitler. Black folks, white folks rushed the green, lifted him up, and carried him off the golf course. And he became an instant hero to folks in sub-Saharan Africa.
And Lewis didn't slow down. Soon after, he began his collegiate career at the University of Virginia.
He was ACC Freshman of the Year. He was All-American. He won a tournament. He was always in contention. He was trying to win every tournament he entered and had that as a goal, to be the best ever to come from Zimbabwe. He graduated from Virginia spring of '98 and then turned pro. I think he played a few amateur tournaments that summer.
Lewis Chitengwa trying to get back to +2. 25-year-old native of Harare, Zimbabwe.
Lewis continued on a trajectory towards the PGA Tour, showing immediate promise on the Buy.com Tour and then the Canadian Tour.
He was playing the Canadian Tour. He'd been out in the Vancouver area the previous 2 weeks, had played well, finished top 10 in both of those events, goes to Edmonton, arrives on a Monday. Tournament starts Thursday. He shoots 70 on Thursday. He shoots 67 on Friday. He's in contention, but he started to feel ill on Friday, and to the point where Saturday he withdrew from the tournament. They rushed him to an emergency room and he died 45 minutes later. And they discovered that he contracted meningococcal meningitis while in Edmonton. It was horrific. I mean, it was horrendous for everybody who knew him and loved him and spent any time with him. To hear this news that he had died suddenly was just shocking. It was gut-wrenching. You never get fully beyond the agony you feel of a loss like that.
His golf accomplishments speak for themselves. I think his connecting with people was really what made him that much, more special. He'd gone to Japan for the World Junior Team Championships, and he'd met people there, and years later he was still writing them postcards and letters everywhere he went for years. And it was people who weren't like the top players on the other teams necessarily. It was like one of the ladies who served him lunch. And so the outpouring when he died, the outpouring from around the globe as people heard, was tremendous.
Anybody who watched him play for any length of time knew he had what it took to.
He was on his way.
He was on his way to get there. Because at every level, he competed with and he beat the best. Lewis would have won majors on the PGA Tour had he lived. He was a rare, fantastic talent. He could pound the ball. He was always among the longest drivers at any level, and he had a great imagination. I remember a shot he hit in Northern Ireland in just horrendous wind, and he's 80 yards short of the green on a par 5. And he plays like a 80-yard putt with his 2-iron, and the ball never gets more than an inch above the ground, and it just skates up and down through contours, and he hits it up to a foot. And I realized he figured all that out. His imagination was amazing. In 2015, Lewis was inducted posthumously into the Southern Africa Golf Hall of Fame. And that was a wonderful honor. It created a beautiful museum in Cape Town. And of course, there's legends in there like Ernie Els and Gary Player and Nick Price and the greatest players from Sub-Saharan Africa. And to have Lewis included he's certainly worthy for all the things he did as an amateur golfer.
And his story, it lives on here at his former school, the University of Virginia.
Every time we walk out of our doors, the first thing we see is Lewis.
They commemorate their 2-time All-American here in Charlottesville with an annual tournament in his name.
It's been great for our program to have him be memorialized through this event and have his legacy carry on here at Virginia. I think the biggest thing in it is life is short. These guys, when they're 17, 18, 19, they think life goes on forever, and it doesn't. It's short. So it does. It means a lot to a lot of people, and certainly here at the University of Virginia, we care a lot about Lewis and his family and honoring him.
Lewis learned the game from his father. That's what led him to where he went to in life. And without those opportunities, that wouldn't have happened. And none of us would have known Lewis. And that would have been sad if we'd not known Lewis. Because as awful as it was to lose him at age 26, what he brought to everyone's life and what we experienced with Lewis was worth it. It was worth the suffering of losing him at a young age. So part of his legacy is just his opportunity for people. And I think fortunately in golf now, it's a good thing. There are a lot of efforts being made to create opportunities for people who would not otherwise have that opportunity to play golf and learn golf, because it's a wonderful thing to do, to be out on a golf course with people and learning good life skills. So I think that's something for Lewis that he will always be attached to that in my mind, of having opportunities through golf.